The first attack threats that a country or a certain combat zone can expect to receive from the outside will always be those that arrive by air. And they will do so using a wide variety of launched systems, whether they are located on land, on or under the sea, and from the air. And they could be some of the following. The airspace defense, AED, from now, of a nation, of an army, is the first barrier available to ensure territorial security and integrity. The systems and means that make up an airspace defense system, AED, are of two levels, strategic and tactical. In this first video, I will focus on strategic level media and systems. I will analyze the strategic air defense systems from the farthest to the Earth, and we will gradually descend. We start in the thermosphere, where military satellites orbit. Strategically, an AED system begins with a network of terrestrial surveillance and observation satellites. Recall that, right now, there are about 2,000 satellites that surround the Earth, in different orbits. We will see a scheme of the orbits used by the different types of satellites. In the so-called LEO orbit, is where the satellites that interest us are located. They are surveillance and observation. It comprises from 200 kilometers from land to 2,000 kilometers. In the MEO orbit, there are the global navigation and positioning satellites. It covers from 2,000 kilometers to 35,786 kilometers. In the geo or geostationary orbit, there are meteorological and communications satellites. The distance is maintained at 35,786 kilometers. And finally, there is the HEO orbit, starting at 35,786 kilometers. Spain, because of its membership in NATO, can benefit from the information obtained by satellites from other member countries. Since NATO, as an international military organization, does not have its own network of surveillance satellites. Although almost 50 of military satellites today belong to NATO member countries, as we can see in the graph. It is an alternative, but it can be slow, and will always be subject to interests external to those of the country requesting the information. The oldest satellites, from which Spain can continue to receive information, are Helios 2, the result of cooperation between France, Italy and, to a lesser extent, Spain. The first one was launched in 2004 and Helios IIB in 2009. They are military optical reconnaissance satellites, with a resolution capacity of up to 50 centimeters in the visible and infrared spectrum. Problem is that they are operated by France directly, so they work under their own interests. And their interests do not match the Spanish interests, as could be seen during the Perejil Island incident. It happened in 2002, when a Moroccan squad invaded the island Parsley. Spain asked France for information on one of its satellites, before recovering it with the members of the GO. But such information was denied by our Gabacho's neighbors. Such collaboration was to be expected, since France still protects Morocco as if it were its protectorate, and is not Spain's best ally. The best solution is to have your own network of military satellites. As we have just seen, Spain is one of the countries which has its own military observation and surveillance satellites. It is designed and manufactured by the Spanish international company Hisdesat, owned by Hispasat. It cost 160 million euros, weighs 1,600 kilograms and has a lifespan of about 10 years. It orbits 15 times around the Earth per day, covering an area of about 300,000 square kilometers, at a height of 514 kilometers and at a speed of 25,000 kilometers per hour. You can take up to 100 very high-quality images per day, of up to 25 centimeters resolution, a car license plate, for example, or in other size and quality settings. Use an electronic radar, for remote configuration from the ground. This means that the images are not obtained optically. The advantage of this is that the image will be obtained despite the current weather and light conditions. And secondly, and manufactured by the Spanish international company SENER, after several manufacturing problems, we have the Seosat satellite, with a final cost of about 200 million euros. It is launched in 2020, and consists of a high-resolution multispectral image capture unit, from 2.5 to 10 meters. Therefore, each pixel will represent 2.5 meters, which will allow you to see details about the terrain the size of a car. Although this is not much greater than what Google Earth currently offers. It is at an altitude of 670 kilometers, making 14.4 orbits a day and with a useful life of 7 years. Now, we are in the mesosphere, where RPAS planes fly. Spanish Armed Forces has a complete system of unmanned aerial vehicles MQ-9 Predator, developed by the American company General Atomics Aeronautical. The system, which has an approximate cost of 115 million euros, consists of 4 airplanes, 2 control stations and a satellite link. The plane has a speed of about 440 kilometers per hour, has a range of up to 27 hours of flight, flying about 15 kilometers high. Its thermal and infrared camera is able to read a license plate 3 kilometers away. It is also used in permanent military missions abroad, of which Spain collaborates on an average of 20 missions a year worldwide. The crew operates the drone via satellite, from the GCS ground control station, with an average delay of about 1.2 seconds. Spain currently has 2 control centers, Badajoz and the Canary Islands. In the GCS, there are 2 positions that have direct control over the aircraft, the pilot and the sensor operator. Now, we have to talk about the stratosphere, where AWACS planes fly. Starting to descend towards the Earth, let's continue with this review of the strategic systems that Spain has for the observation, surveillance and defense of its airspace. Within NATO, and from this German base in Geilenkirchen, a fleet of 14 AWACS Boeing E3-Sentry aircraft operates permanently. These aircraft offer an early warning system, surveillance and observation of airspace, aerospace control, electronic surveillance and electronic countermeasure management. They can also be authentic centers of control and command of the battle, redundant to those existing on the ground. Under normal circumstances, They fly in 8-hour shifts, about 10 kilometers high, covering an area of about 310,000 square kilometers. They have a flight crew of 4 people. And in addition, a team of 13 to 19 people, for the tasks of airspace control. The radar that we see in its upper part, with more than 9 meters in diameter, allows to detect up to 375 kilometers away, targets on land, over the sea or in flight. First, we must talk about space radars. Already on land and in 2019, the Spanish company INDRA installed in the south of the country, Seville, the first space surveillance radar in Europe. This radar performs surveillance and monitoring of space objects in the low orbit, LEO, between 200 and 2000 kilometers, using the ESA technology, active electronically scanned array. Currently, it can detect objects 2.2 m in diameter 1000 kilometers away. It has the ability to alert the approach of hostile satellites, monitor the trajectory of enemy spy satellites and track ballistic missiles. Finally, let's look at the radar network on the ground. Regardless of the country in question, all advanced nations have a strategic network of early warning, land-based radars as well. In the case of Spain, we have 14 air surveillance squadrons, EVA equipped, 10 of them, with the Lanza radar, of the Spanish company INDRA. They are strategically located, in hard-to-reach places, and that also allow you to glimpse much of what flies in the neighboring countries, of Portugal, France and Morocco. They are based on a modular and scalable architecture, which will allow them to continue improving the system technically, with hardly any technical changes. They have a maximum range, in distance, of 500 kilometers. And in height, its range is 30 kilometers. We have already seen, in these 2 videos, what are the Spanish air defense systems, at strategic level. All that remains, is to explain how all the information collected by these systems, is organized, controlled and coordinated.
Depending on the Ministry of Defense of Spain, is the Joint General Staff of the Defense. This agency depends, among others, on Operations Command of the 3 armies, and the Armed Forces Intelligence Center, CIFAS. The Air Combat Command, MACOM, depends on the Operations Command, as do those of the Army and the Navy. MACOM depends on the Air Operations Defense Command. It is responsible for coordinating its actions with the air combat units, Air Force, anti-aircraft units, Army and warships, Navy. On the other hand, as we can see, the CIFAS depends on the Surveillance Operations Center, COV. Within NATO, in Europe is the European Allied Headquarters, SHAPE. And depending on the SHAPE, in Spain there is one of the 2 Combined Air Operations Centers, CAOC, that exist in Europe.
The CAOC Torrejon, Spain, covers from the Azores Islands to Romania, and from the Canary Islands to Turkey. The main mission of CAOC Torrejon is to plan, direct, coordinate, supervise, analyze and report on air defense operations, under NATO supervision. The CAOC Torrejon has under its tactical command all the material and personal resources that allied countries offer. This includes, both at the detection level, satellites and radars, and at the level of neutralization, combat fleets and anti-aircraft artillery.
Finally, and depending on the Ministry of Industry, Energy and Tourism of Spain, is the Space Operations and Monitoring Center S3TOC, coordinated with the European S3T.
Given the existing organizational structure in Spain, let's see how the information collected by the Strategic Airspace Defense Systems, DEA, is managed. The ground-based radar network, EVAs, sends your data to the MDOA. This same MDOA will receive the information collected by the RPAs, MQ-9 Predator. The information of the military satellites is managed in the COVE. Thus, as they also arrive at this COVE center, the space radar on the ground. While the data collected by the AWACS aircraft network, it is processed directly at the CAOC of Torrejon, Spain. And, of course, in the case of an international armed conflict, Spain could also make use of its own civilian satellite network, or of the EU, if that were the case. Finally, all the key strategic organizations of the Spanish air defense are located in the same military facilities of the Torrejon de Ardoz Air Base, in Madrid.